Right. I think that what will happen is now that, certainly, look, Governor Christie has got a national profile, regardless of what happened in Wisconsin. And, you know, he's very outspoken. He's very aggressive. And one of the things that Governor Christie has is his demeanor. You know, before the results are in, Governor Christie gets headlines because of who he is. He's willing to pick a fight when you have to. And he just says it like it is. He is a Jersey guy. Very contrasting with Governor Walker, who's really soft-spoken and very mellow and almost quiet in his demeanor. But look, he got the job done. The state is turning around. People are now headed into Wisconsin to get employment. That's a good thing. And we need to now see that happen in New Jersey. And I think that is going to be the driving conversation, is going to be, how do you get it? Do you cut spending? Do you cut taxes? What do you do to get there? All right, we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. So stay with us, gentlemen. Next, compromise in Trenton. Could new plans on the Rutgers-Rowan merger and the governor's tax proposal, well, have all sides meeting eye to eye? More when New Jersey Now continues. Stay tuned. All right, here's a word we don't hear very often: compromise. We don't hear it in Washington or too much in Trenton these days, but it was a term mentioned a few times in Trenton this past week, and that's right, two heated issues maybe simmering down a bit, and it all could be due to the magic word compromise. Joining me again to talk all about this, Democratic strategist Leroy Jones Jr., who's a partner in 1868 Public Affairs, and Republican strategist Bill Spadia. Gentlemen, compromise is what we're talking about when it comes to Governor Christie shifting gears a little bit on his 10% across-the-board tax cut. Now he's willing to work a little bit with Democrats. He had wanted to attack income taxes and reduce it, and now he's willing to reduce property taxes, which is what the Democrats wanted. What do you think about that? Are you happy? You must be happy, Lee.
Well, you know, it's very surprising. I mean, you know, he's becoming you know, a realist now, and knowing that you know, he has to compromise with the legislature. You know, there's obviously some hurdles to accomplish as well, because I believe the Assembly has its own version. You know, he's reached this compromise with the Senate President, I believe, but the Assembly wants to see you know, some sweeteners to it in terms of you know, perhaps you know, 20% property tax rebate and 25% to senior citizens, you know, to deal with you know, this whole $32 billion you know, budget you know, issue that we have.
Well, first of all, just to put it into context, I mean, the governor is no stranger to compromise. He was able to meet the Senate President. The Senate President.
Wait a minute.
We are still in New Jersey. We're talking about
back in Wisconsin.
Right?
That's right. We have to be in either Massachusetts or Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's right. We got pension reform. I mean, think about it. That was a major, major hurdle to overcome, where both houses of the legislature were in the opposite party, and Chris Christie was able to negotiate that. I think that was a credit to his leadership skills, but also a credit to his understanding that, look, he's going to shoot this far and understand we're going to have to meet somewhere in the middle. The best news about this is not just as a Republican. Of course, we love tax cuts, but for good reason. Number one, tax cuts are job creators. Tax cuts are revenue builders. You know, the Democrats, I love this. They tend to look at tax cuts in this static model and say, well, if you cut the tax rate and you keep your finances the same, you're going to get less revenue. But the opposite tends to happen. It's why John Kennedy backed tax cuts. It's why Ronald Reagan backed tax cuts. Tax cuts throughout history, right up to the Bush tax cuts, generated more revenue rather than less.
Maybe it's not compromise. Maybe it's backpedaling because New Jersey's not getting as much money as it thought. I mean, is that a possibility?
Well, the revenue projections are lower than they had. Well, bleak is a strong word, Leroy. You know, the only reason I don't agree with that is if you look at it, the revenue projections were 7.4%. Now they've said it's going to be 7% over. So I think we're making much to do about nothing in terms of the actual number. The bottom line is the revenue projections are going in the right direction. Remember, we're only 3 years into this turnaround. So I think there's a lot more ground to cover, and I'm hoping that Chris Christie gets a second term, because I think this is an 8-year plan to bring the state back.
What are you hoping, Leroy?
Well, I'm just agreeing with you. It's backpedaling at its best. You know, it's you know, obviously we're in a situation where you know, we have to deal with the pocketbook issues of of the New Jerseyans. We're in a in an economy that is creeping up a little bit. Job creation is down. New Jersey is 9% unemployment, which trails the the national unemployment rate. So it's actually higher than the national unemployment rate. So we're in an environment where people are looking for relief. They're looking for jobs. That had been the mantelpiece of Don Payne Jr.'s congressional race. It was jobs, jobs, jobs. And we're now in that environment where we have to address the needs of so many vulnerable New Jerseyans, and it has to be through the budget. And if it's tax cuts by virtue of property tax relief, where we're one of the highest property tax states in the union, then so be it. If it's concentrating on giving senior citizens a greater break, because they're fixed incomes individuals, let's do that. I can understand where the Assembly is focusing its concerns. And hopefully the legislature as a whole can agree along with the government.
Leroy, I think you'll agree, though, the bottom line is that taxes will be cut. So we're beyond that debate, and I think that's very healthy.
It's how much now? I mean,
it's how much. We're dickering price now.
Everybody wants taxes cut in that way. Everybody wants a little more in their pocketbook. But my question for you is, are we getting into some trouble here because there's talk about borrowing money to get us out of some fiscal trouble here in New Jersey?
Well, you never want to be in a position where you're borrowing to pay old debt. I mean, that is it's a vicious cycle, but I think the governor talked about that the other day, and he said, look, first of all, we're borrowing less, and we're borrowing less in increasing and decreasing amounts over time, and he's done that over the past 3 years. The reality is that you couldn't just cut it off immediately and not have any borrowing, because then what services are you cutting? So right to the Democrats' point, I think this is why Steve Sweeney, the Senate president, is willing to compromise, because you're talking about a couple $100 million shortfall,
right?
And how do you can you cut that much out of the budget immediately? And I think both sides are saying, no, let's not get radical on that side. Let's first fix it, and let's have this decrease over time, which is why I say it's not an immediate fix; it's a long-term fix.
Right. And the borrowing, is a non-starter. It happened in the Whitman years, and we're still catching up from that.
Well, in the Corzine years. Remember, to borrow from David Axelrod, we inherited a mess. So
yeah, all right. Here's another. We're changing topics here again because I want to talk a little bit quickly about the Rutgers and Rowan compromise. I know there is no done deal yet, but is this a good thing, a bad thing? I mean, how do you feel?
Well, conceptually, folks seem to be, moving toward it. It has to be the devil's in the details. They have to get in the weeds. There's some issues with respect to UMD&J, the hospital portion of it. Is it going to be dealt with through a private management firm? There's the debt portion, who's going to absorb the debt? When Rutgers takes control of the medical schools here in Newark, and then pushing off the Camden pieces to Rowan. It's a big deal. There's going to be a legislative
is it going to get done by July 1st?
I don't see that.
Most people don't even really understand the details of the issue. I don't think either side has explained yet to the voters and the taxpayers how this benefits them. I mean, the only people you hear from are these Rutgers graduates who are saying, now wait a minute, I'm still going to have my degree from Rutgers, right? It's not going to be Rowan. So at this point, it's a very emotional issue because people are tied into the school and their alma mater, and that makes sense. So I think that both sides have to make a clear case on how does this save the taxpayers money? Does this make the university system more efficient? I mean, that's the key.
Got it. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I hope you'll join us. Come back again. There's so many more topics as the summer goes on. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
And if you have any ideas about topics you'd like to see discussed, please log on to my9tv.com and click on Public Affairs. We want to hear from you. You can also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. That's all for today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. For My 9, I'm Sharon Crowley. We'll see you next week on New Jersey Now.